Good morning, everyone. My name is Devin Franklin. I am Movement Policy Counsel here at the Southern Center for Human Rights. And I am grateful to be in this space and to welcome Messiah Young and his family, and Tanaya Pilgrim and her family as well, for us to have a resolution to the tragic experience that they had to endure during May of 2020. What happened to Tanaya and Messiah on that date is emblematic of the culture of policing in Atlanta Police Department. I know this because it's part of my work here at the Southern Center for Human Rights. I do a great deal of work looking at policing trends in the city of Atlanta. That their assault occurred only yards away from hundreds, if not thousands, of protesters who were crying out for justice and freedom and accountability for those officers who had taken the life of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. That the tragedy that occurred to them could happen in that space, there are no words for it. There's no reason to have children pulled out of vehicles and assaulted by police officers. There's no reason for this conversation to have taken more than 4 years to resolve. There is no reason but for the fact that we understand that here in the city of Atlanta, that a premium is placed on policing as an institution that is allowed to do and proceed at their own will. To the extent that reform or policy adjustments are a thing that is considered by the police department brass or elected officials, they have betrayed those particular reforms. Shortly after the incidents that happened with Messiah and Tanaya, the Atlanta City Council, the Atlanta Police Department took measures that were said to reduce policing violence towards citizens. They adopted 8 Can't Wait. They implemented a public-facing dashboard that was supposed to be a transparency measure, the Justice Reform website, a website where the Atlanta Police Department was supposed to regularly publish data that pertained to how frequently they actually use force against citizens. That dashboard has not been updated in more than a year and a half. And so the mechanisms that they put in place to protect citizens from the harms that police are uniquely situated to impact upon people have not been followed upon by council members, the police department, or Mayor Andre Dickens. And I'm sorry. Just to give an understanding of what type of work we're talking about here with the Atlanta Police Department. Give me a second. We are dealing with a police department that is more well-funded than most police departments in the United States of America, that is more well-staffed than most police departments in the United States of America, that if you go to this Justice Reform Policy website, they tell you their officers are more trained than most in the country. Yet we have some of the greatest racial disparities in the use of force in the United States of America. We have some of the lowest rates of accountability for officers who inflict use of force against those persons arrested. And so today is a step towards accountability. We are grateful that Messiah and Tanaya will receive some level of recompense, but understand that the memories of what happened to them that day can never be erased. Mm-hmm. They live with that incident etched in their memories forever. They are forever impacted. We think about the things that we can do going forward to make sure that these things do not happen to anyone else again, especially college students who come to our city to better themselves. Here at the Southern Center for Human Rights, we seek for ways to engage with community members and citizens. We are launching a court watch program soon so that we can talk not just about the data of what happens in our courts, but so that citizens can hear officers testify or not testify about the way in which they do their work. We encourage you to reach out to us and find ways to become part of community in that way. And we thank you for your time, and we thank you for this legal team and their excellent work.
There was 2 law firms, but 1 legal team. We have been honored to work with my friends, Chris Stewart, Justin Miller, Diana Lee of the Stewart Miller Simmons law firm. These trial attorneys have been wonderful to work with because they are, like our firm, committed to justice. They have been warriors. They have been legal warriors, and it is a great honor that we've had a chance to combine forces to fight for these students, to set aside anything that might appear to be different, and to just be one legal team and to do that work. And so I know that Harold Spence, you'll hear from him in a moment. He's led our litigation team on this front. But at this time, I'd like to bring up, again, my friend and warrior in this work, Chris Stewart.
Good morning. I'm attorney Chris Stewart. I, along with my law partner Justin Miller and Diana Lee, we represented Tanaya Pilgrim. I just wanted to make sure the general public understands the actual facts of this case. We've seen a lot of things misquoted. Tanaya and Messiah were not at the protests. They did not take part in the protests. They had nothing to do with the protest that night. They were driving in their car after getting something to eat and got stuck in traffic. That's what happened. And then, as you all saw from the video, which speaks for itself, you saw a 90-pound girl ripped out of a car, tasered multiple times, slammed on the ground, handcuffed, and put in the back of a van during the height of COVID with no mask, with a bunch of people who had actually been arrested. Tanaya was never arrested. She was never charged. We have no idea why they actually tasered her, assaulted her, handcuffed her, and put her in a van. What most of you don't know is later that night, an officer just opened the back of the van, took off her handcuffs, and pushed her away. And she was left on the street, half clothed, in the middle of protests that she wasn't there for. That's why the city settled this case. This is not a gift. This is not something that these kids didn't deserve. Both of these kids were innocent victims who were caught in traffic that night and mistaken for someone who was breaking the law. The city wouldn't just pay $2 million for no reason. We've taken multiple depositions of all the officers, of chiefs, of everybody. We know what actually happened because we got to talk to the officers and ask, why did you do this to this girl? The city heard, and the case settled for $2 million. We were proud to fight for them. We fight for victims. It doesn't matter your race, creed, color, gender. We fight for victims who have been abused. These kids were abused. And we've seen people say, well, that's our taxpayer money. It is. But it's also your taxpayer money that paid a 200-pound officer to taser a little girl, rip her out her car, and handcuff her and not arrest her. That's why police officers do need insurance, which we fought for forever, but never ever happens. Because then it wouldn't be your tax dollars, it would be insurance. But that won't happen because then that would be a third-party oversight. So maybe change will happen. But don't question, did these kids deserve it? Because if this was your daughter or son who innocently was driving a car and had this happen to them, what value would you put on it? Thank you to everybody that have been supporting for all these years, and thank you to our entire legal team that fought to get this done, and the city council members and the mayor.
Thank you, Chris. We'd like to bring forward my law partner, Harold Spence, who has been our lead litigator And a lot of the depositions that Chris referred to, Harold has taken. And again, what we heard from these officers, from those that were deposed, is disturbing, deeply, deeply disturbing. That is where the focus should be, not on this final outcome. As Chris said, I completely agree. Nothing can compensate these young people for the traumatic experience that they went through, and that will be forever a part of their life, and that they will forever have to deal with as they go forward. Every time a police car pulls up, every time a police officer is in their presence, they will think twice, they will move differently, they will respond differently, they will have an emotional reaction because they know what's possible. And that is sad and sickening. To the cities of Chicago and San Antonio, the cities that they came from, to come to Atlanta, to go to the Atlanta University Center, to Morehouse and Spelman, there should be an apology issued to those cities for their young people coming here and being brutalized in that way. So with that, Attorney Harold Spence.
Good morning, everyone. Our presence here today is a testament to the courage and perseverance of these two young people, Taniyah Pilgrim and Messiah Young. They were brutalized on May 30th, 2020, for no reason. One of the good things about trying cases is that you do get to take depositions of the people that you sue. We sued 10 police officers in this case, and the former chief of police, Erica Shields. So you get to take their depositions, sit them in a room, and for up to 7 hours, you can question them about the events concerning the lawsuit. Many of the depositions of the officers that we sued took 7 hours, not because we were being inefficient in taking them, but because they operated by the traditional APD playbook. They falsified their initial reports. When they went before internal affairs, they didn't tell the truth, and they came into their depositions determined not to tell the truth. But if you look at the deposition testimony of each of these 10 officers, you'll see them giving similar answers. Now, it took hours to get them there. Did Taniyah Pilgrim do anything that night to justify any degree of physical force being exerted against her? All 10 of them, no. The former chief of police, Erica Shields, no. Former Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, no. Did Taniyah Pilgrim do anything to justify being tased that night? The uniform answer was no. Did she do anything to justify being dragged from the vehicle she was in and handcuffed? The answer was no. We deposed the city's master class instructor on tasers. Did Messiah Young do anything to justify being tased that night? And this is the city's representative. The answer was no. So it's these no answers that have prompted the resolution of this case. Now, we've been told that a decision was made not to prosecute these officers, sort of suggesting that this was a gift, this settlement was a gift to these young people. But the governor chose who was going to investigate this case. And the person that he chose, he almost baked in the result. We saw yesterday with a decision from our nation's highest court that depending on who the decision makers are, the outcome could be baked in from the outset. So because of who was chosen to look into whether these officers should be prosecuted, the outcome was baked in from the outset. And if you look at the report, this 17-page report that this special prosecutor wrote, it is full of falsehoods from beginning to end. Falsehoods that were denied by the officers involved, that were denied by the former mayor, that were denied by the former chief of police. He said that everybody out there who's out there after 9 o'clock was supposed to be arrested. Nobody said that that was true. In fact, everybody denied it. The city still had a law on the books that said you have to be willfully and knowingly violating the curfew. There was zero evidence that Taniyah Pilgrim or Messiah Young willfully or knowingly violated any curfew. This special district attorney's report said that the officers were told that they should treat Messiah Young and Taniyah Pilgrim as if they were doing their darndest to tear down the city of Atlanta. I asked each of the 10 officers that. Were you told that that's how you should treat them? The answer was no. The former police chief, did you tell any officer that that's how they should treat these young people? No. The former mayor denied it. So it's right and just that we are here today. It's right and just that this matter has been resolved. I don't know how this would impact me if I had gone through what they went through when I was in my early 20s and a college student. To be surrounded by angry police officers who take out tasers and tase you for no reason, who take out guns and point them toward you, who shout conflicting commands toward you. It's a frightening and chaotic scene that these young people went through, something that has traumatized them, I suspect, for life. But notwithstanding that trauma, they've shown the kind of perseverance and courage that has gotten us here today. It's been an honor representing them, and I'd just like to say that a lot of the work that we did with Chris Stewart and Justin Miller's firm, we spent a lot of time together. I mean, weeks on end. And it was my great pleasure to work particularly closely with one of the attorneys there, Attorney Diana Lee, who is going to be a rising star in the legal profession. You may not know the name, but remember it, because she's going to be a rising star. So to Chris Stewart, Justin Miller, and Diana Lee, my law partner, Maoli Davis, and I thank you for having had this opportunity to work with you on this case. Thank you much.
At this time, we'd like to have Messiah come up and share briefly. He will not be taking any questions, but he would like to just have a chance to address everyone as this closes out. His family has been here with him throughout this process. As we spoke earlier today, we just reminded one another that out of all of this, what matters most is family. And his family has stood by him, supported him, loved him, and continue to do so. And by large part is the reason that he's able to even stand after having gone through what he went through. Messiah.
Thank you for everyone who supported us over the years. There's a lot of work to be done. There's still blood on the streets of Atlanta. The idea of justice that was once lauded has unfortunately crumbled to dust. We will keep pushing forward. Bless you, and I am the bone of my sword.
We'd like Taniyah to come up and share as well.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who has been supporting and uplifting us. This situation occurred 4 years ago, and it's a memory that I've been wanting to forget, and I'm sure Messiah has too, but unfortunately, it is etched into our memory. But yeah, I just want to say I'm happy that this is finally settled. I'm happy to close this chapter of my life. And once again, I just want to say I really appreciate everyone, especially my lawyers and my family. And yeah, thank you guys so much.
We'll take some questions. Chris, any questions? Yes.
I know, but when it was decided that the officers did not use excessive force and they wouldn't be charged, I think a lot of people thought this was over, and I'm guessing that's why they're calling this a gift to the college students, but can you just speak to the contrast between they didn't use excessive force, but then the city decided 13-1 that they deserve this money?
Yeah, I would like to, and I'll let anyone else who wants to speak on it as well. And I do want to lift up that one, Alex Wan, very disappointing, you know, and I just hope that the voters remember who was the one who voted against them. I think that's important for the city and the voters to remember who would vote against this Morehouse and Spelman student who were minding their business at the time. The second piece, your question, we see too often, very rarely do we see police prosecuted. And so to think that this special appointed prosecutor who had a narrative and a report, as Attorney Spence mentioned, full of lies, of exaggerations, of falsehoods, did an investigation in the way that these lawyers who took the actual sworn depositions, it's just night and day. It's very easy when you're politically motivated to write off what happened to these young people. It's not so easy when each person has to sit in that seat, raise their hand, and under oath answer a series of questions that they could not deny. And so the legal department had an opportunity to be present and hear the results of those questions. That's different from this concocted, created narrative that this prosecutor, who has now been elevated to a Superior Court judge, was able to do and put forward. So everybody who understands how this system currently works is clear that what was presented as a report about why they could not be criminally prosecuted was nothing more than a political narrative that was necessary, again, to push back against any of the reforms that the community, and there were people in the street, and sometimes this is taken out of context. In 2020, people took to the street of all races, of all ages, and said, enough is enough. We see what's happening predominantly to black folk in America, and this has to stop. And so now there's been this swing the other way, and this report that this district attorney produced was a part of that swing in the other direction that, again, attempted to criminalize the victim, as so often is done when black, brown, and poor people are brutalized by law enforcement.
And this is what we have to deal with when we deal with these cases, right? People think it's over, the case is done because it's not in the news anymore. But clearly it's not over for them. And behind the scenes, we've been working the entire 4 years to make sure we get to this moment in time. So because everyone doesn't see all of the work that goes into getting here, they say, I think it's over. They'll see a report and they say it's done, but it's not done. And the work still has to happen, and it's 4 years later. And so people just have to remember that just because they don't see it, or they see one report, it doesn't mean that the people who are fighting us to keep justice from happening aren't doing their work as well.
As you noted, 4 years have passed. What are Messiah and Tanaya doing today? What's going on right now?
Messiah is an artist, as you can see. He is an artist. He is an artist at heart. He is a creator, and we're looking forward to his creations, clothing, style, fashion, and so that's been his focus with the support of his family. So we're excited. I think it'll launch in November sometime, right? So in November, you know, when you all see me come to the next press conference, I'm going to be decked out with Messiah's gear, I think, if I can wear it. So, but that's what Messiah is doing, and Tanaya, I know, is getting ready to graduate.
Yeah. I had to take a little break from school, but now I graduate in December, so yeah, I'm really excited.
We can clap for that.
I just wanted to ask in response to the last question. In this case, the city of Atlanta hired 3 private law firms to represent it. Representatives from these 3 private law firms participated in every deposition, in every phase of this case. a case in which several 100,000 pages of documents were exchanged. Part of the reason why the city settled this case was because the lawyers who were in the room, the lawyers who were litigating this case, told them, we can lose this. We should settle. It's in our best interest to settle. Now you see these resolutions and they say, we decided to settle because it would cost us more to defend the case than it would be worth. That's not why they did it. And it wasn't out of the goodness of their heart. They did it because they knew that they could lose. They knew that they were wrong. They won't admit it, but nobody pays $2 million as a gift to anybody.
The officers responded to your questions in a deposition, but what reason did they give for this incident?
None. They couldn't justify it. When we asked them, did Tanaya Pilgrim do anything to threaten you, to justify being taken? The answer was no, but you have to understand how these depositions work. You spend hours getting them up to this point, fighting through the lies, the resistance to acknowledging the truth, and ultimately there's nowhere else for them to go. They could provide no justification. And I just brought with me the chief of police's deposition. And I could turn to the page now and read the question and answer. Was there any legal justification for the force administered to Messiah Young and Tanaya Pilgrim? Her answer was no. Under oath, that's the former chief of police. So they couldn't give a reason because no justifiable or legal reason existed for them to exert any degree of force against these two young people.
The city council issued or made some amendments to their resolution to issue this settlement. One of those amendments had to do with absolving themselves of taking any blame for this. That was one of the amendments. So what's your response to that?
I mean, that's fine. You know, that's pretty standard in a lot of settlements. But to clear up one thing that has been misunderstood, they're saying the officers were found, you know, from the resolution, they didn't do anything, they didn't violate anything. Well, that's not fully true. We have to remember they were terminated. They were prosecuted by a DA. They were charged. The police chief found that they violated multiple things, the past police chief. That's 3 representatives of Atlanta finding that these officers had done something, and just 1 special prosecutor who disagreed. So that's 3 very important high-ranking people in Atlanta who found that they did something and that this settlement would have been deserving and that multiple things were violated, and 1 person who disagreed. So it's not fully accurate that the city never thought that these officers did anything wrong, because 3 high-ranking officials did.
I'd like to know whether Tanaya and Messiah have any big plans, you know, to do anything benefiting the community, you know, with the settlement or reward.
They're going to continue to be supportive of the social justice work that the center, when we talked to them about where this should take place and we mentioned the Southern Center for Human Rights, they thought that this would be the appropriate place because they know that what they experienced, this work continues, and they just don't want another young person to have to go through this. And so their presence here is their support of the work of the Southern Center for Human Rights and the ongoing fight against for police accountability and against police brutality. We thank you all for coming this morning. Again, we thank these law firms, we thank these families, but we also thank those who did take to the street, because we don't want to criminalize them because they did voice their First Amendment right to protest the death of George Floyd. And so we lift up the name of George Floyd today, and we remember what started all of this to try to make a change in America and a change in Atlanta. And so we say his name. Thank you.